The word tyrant is usually synonymous with a ruthless despot, a usurper who overthrows the government and rules with an iron grip. The Age of Tyrants, the period of archaic Greece when tyrants reigned in many cities across the Greek world, similarly conjures up ideas of oppression, despotism, and revolution. But was this really the case? Was this Age of Tyrants tyrannical? A key issue with our knowledge of this period, and more generally with the Archaic era as a whole, is that most of our information comes from sources written in the classical period. These writers often bring many preconceptions from their own days, such as the vilification of tyrants as ruthless dictators and usurpers against their civic tradition as it would have been in their own time. So, our accounts of rulers from the Age of Tyrants often embellish their cruelty and minimize their achievements. A good example of this can be seen with the Kypselid dynasty of tyrants in Corinth. 7th century Corinth was ruled by the Bacchiadae clan of priest-kings, and in 657 BCE, the POLEMARCH Kypselos overthrew them and established a tyranny. According to Herodotus, as befitting a tyrant, Kypselos' reign was brutal, as he went about murdering and exiling his political rivals while confiscating their wealth. However, Corinth also flourished under his reign. Kypselos strengthened trade and Corinth's colonial projects by allowing his political enemies to found new colonies in exile. Kypselos would reign for 30 years and was succeeded as tyrant by his son Periander. Periander built upon his father's work and made Corinth into one of the major centers of trade in Greece. He founded colonies and bolstered existing ones. He built a transport system across the Isthmus of Corinth, and the iconic red figure pottery developed under his reign. Yet, Herodotus comments that the son was more bloodthirsty than the father, for Periander supposedly castrated 300 noble sons from Corcyra and killed his wife in a rage, among other heinous crimes. But this classical narrative of cruelty and tyranny seems to be at odds with contemporary opinion, as after his death, Periander was celebrated as one of the 7 sages of Greece, who were known for their great wisdom. In fact, 2 of these 7 sages were tyrants of their respective polis. Evidently, our knowledge of these tyrants is obscured by our sources. In order to understand how these tyrants may have been viewed in their own time, we need to understand how politics functioned in archaic Greece. Far from the constitutional, civic-minded states of the classical period, the polis of the Archaic era was less ambitious. Politics was limited to the elite class and was organized among 3 general political bodies: the Board of Elected Officials, an Executive Council, and a General Assembly. But unlike the classical polis, politics was little more than a standoff between rivals, as the political system was designed to check the power and influence among the elite. Individual political positions were often quite weak and restricted, being held usually only once a lifetime and for short yearly terms. However, as no individual alone would be able to hold long-term authority, power coalesced into the hands of ambitious political families which jostled for political positions. The rivalry between these families could be ruthless. But should one of these families manage to sideline their rivals and rule uncontested, they could come to dominate a polis. A tyrant, then, may arise as the leading man of the political family, and therefore of the state. In this context, the narrative of these tyrants seems to align with conventional politics. In Corinth, the Bacchiadae clan was one of these political families that dominated politics. They managed to use their influence to monopolize the position of BASILEUS, king, which we learn from other sources was an annually elected official. Kypselos, the tyrant, came from a competing political family and leveraged his position as polemarch to usurp the role of BASILEUS, and proceeded to murder and exile his rivals, the Bacchiadae. Despite their ruthlessness, these actions were par for the course of archaic politics, and illustrate the political continuity under the tyrants. Even the so-called popular tyrants, such as Pisistratos of Athens, who leveraged popular support from the lower class to break the elite stranglehold on power, also display a similar political continuity. Contrary to the supposed populism, Pisistratos seems to have maintained both the elite legislative and judiciary councils of Athens, and largely refrained from making constitutional changes. All the hallmarks of archaic politics appear to have remained under his tyranny, with clan members and other allies in major positions, and a rival family, the Achaemenids, who contested his clan's rule. The tyrant, therefore, simply dominated the existing oligarchic government, and this position of the tyrant as the leading man of the polis is alluded to in the origins of the word. The word Tyrannos was a loan word from Lydian and came into use in the 7th century. Our earliest reference can be found in the works of the poet Archilochus.
I have no interest in the possessions of King Guges, the one with so much gold, nor has jealousy of him yet overcome me. Nor do I envy the works of the gods, and I have no desire for a grand tyrannus. That is beyond my sights.
From this poem, the Tyrannus is clearly someone of great envy, equal to that of a king or the work of the gods. The term retains its exotic roots and hints at the power and prestige of a Tyrannos. These aspects are also echoed in the work of another contemporary poet, Semonides, when talking about high-maintenance women.
So, such a woman is a fine sight for others, but a bane for her husband, unless he be a Tyrannos or a scepter-bearer, a man whose heart delights in such things.
The Tyrannos embodied the dominant man of the polis who inhabited a world of wealth and power beyond his peers. The Age of Tyrants is a misnomer, as the tyrant was a seemingly recognizable and routine part of Greek society, and not the polish-shaking usurper that the classical writers depicted. Rather, they were the natural product of the individualistic and fiercely competitive political culture that they inhabited. Therefore, we should not think of these tyrants as unjust dictators, but as merely playing the same game as everyone else, only better. This video is a part of Project Dictator, a history YouTuber collaboration covering various tyrants across history. Check out the other videos in the playlist linked below.